Now you can start.
Okay. Namaste, I'm Kamlesh Kapur again. This part is history of the epic age again. After a couple of actually 2000 years, events of the Mahabharata times began. And this lesson is about that. And as I was looking, this was supposed to be an easy kind of thing. Everybody knows, everybody has done this before and knows the story by hand, by memory, and everybody must have seen the Mahabharata serial. So, what is the big deal about this lesson if the story is known? So, from the historical perspective, I was myself thinking that what is the use of knowing all these sky charts? The story is a story, and that is correct. But no, and there is a point to it. So many people think this is a mythology and part of the story are not correct. Now, the question is, did Lord Krishna actually, Shri Krishna actually recite the profound philosophy of Gita to Arjuna from the battlefield? Did the land of Kurukshetra actually turn red with the blood of millions of warriors who were killed during the historic war? If yes, if it happened, then where, when, and in which year? So this is where the historicity and the chronology come. We know where and we know when, approximately in which year that establishes the onset of Kali Yuga, the birth of Shri Krishna, and the deluge of Dwarka, and the war of Mahabharata. So, importance of these findings. And this is a quote from our previous President of India, Dr. Kalam. In India, the core culture goes beyond time. It precedes the arrival of Islam. So this core culture is to be revived. And that is what is the purpose of knowing the story of Mahabharata from the history point of view. It happened. With all the mistakes people made, all the triumphs of people, everything. So he says in India, the core culture goes beyond time. That is where we were taught history absolutely wrong. It precedes the arrival of Islam, it precedes the arrival of Christianity. It is when we accept India in all its splendid glory that, with a shared past as a base. So, this core culture is the shared part of our past, shared past. In other words, whether we are in Tamil Nadu or we are in Sri Lanka or we are in Nepal, this is the formation of core culture. Bhagavad Gita, as recited in the Mahabharata, is part of the core culture and the most fundamental philosophy and a psychology book. So it is when we accept this splendid glory with a shared past as a base, we can look forward to a shared future of peace and prosperity. In other words, this fragmentation, this versus that, this person came and did this, and nothing was there before, that kind of thing should be given a rest forever. So, future of peace and prosperity, of creation itself and abundance. So, our past is there with us forever. We cannot get rid of it. We are the product of that past. So, it has to be nurtured in good faith, not destroyed in exercise of political one-upmanship. So far, this is what has been happening for about 75 years. I mean, just in the last 2 years, and the government of India itself was able to retrieve the teaching of history and teaching of other subjects as well. And they started making the curriculum guidelines and a reasonably accurate history book. So To me, this is a very profound thing. That whether a person is of this religion, this background, this path, follows this path or that path, it doesn't matter. We have a core culture from one end to the other, and that spread not only in India, from India to elsewhere as well. So, with this in view, let us see scientific evidence I'm using, and I want to clarify one point. When we mention astronomy and the charts, the planetary positions of various nakshatras and rashis and planets in relation to the sun and moon, we are not talking about the prediction that chart suggests. That is a whole different science. The science of astrology, we are not touching. We are not interpreting the charts. We are simply showing that this was the position in the sky at such and such time. And then we tally it with the reference given in the Mahabharata itself and find out, if they match. And then we go to the sequence. If one reference gives us contradiction, then we go back and figure out where did the things go wrong. Something is missing. At the same time, besides these astronomical events, eclipses, positions, it is primary evidence because they say heavens don't lie. So, and they cannot be altered either. So, evidence from other sciences corroborating the literary narrative. It is exactly the same approach that I used in the previous lessons and the entire history book that I wrote in 2010. We use archaeology, and the map will show that Indus Valley, the so-called Indus Valley, and Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, they were isolated things, very advanced civilization, whereas Vedic people were primitive and agricultural tribes, things like that. So archaeobotany, paleontology, spelling wrong, geography, oceanography, remote sensing. Now, remote sensing these are recent things. In one of the lectures, some live lecture, somebody asked me, "Are you saying that you are a better historian than Majumdar?" Who suggested that? Nobody saying, that somebody is better than the other. The only thing I'm pointing out is some of the stuff, the tools that we now have in the 21st century, even in the 90s of the last century, they were not available before. So remote sensing and satellite imaging and gives a geological formation underneath the continent. So archaeoastronomical studies of Mahabharata and all of these are woven into the. But what is amazing is the sky charts, because that is, to me, a clinching evidence. Now, the thing is, in the past few days, I was literally lost looking at the charts and interpretation of the sky charts as far as the chronology is concerned. Why? There were three different kind of scholars that I read the papers about. And one took the Surya Siddhant and Varamira's books. Then another group took Puranas, and that came out. Of course, the charts are there, but the way they are fixed into a timeline. So then the third group is who are mathematicians, physicists, and astronomers using NASA's planetarium picture and plugging the information and tallying it. So by the time I finished those 40-page articles by each different side of the same thing, I was so completely tension lost. And I was wondering, if I am not able to make sense out of it, how can I expect that people who are listening to me are going to be listening to me later on would make any sense of it? So, to make it short and to make it simplified, uh, I disregarded Puranas and I disregarded Surya Siddhant and other books on mathematical astronomy. And even if I did try, it would be beyond my knowledge base. So it is said, and now this is a quote, very important. It is said that whatever is in the world is in the Mahabharata, and what is not in Mahabharata is not in the world. This is an interesting kind of observation, and it is the quote under the title of the drama, 11 hours long drama by Peter Brooks. It was shown in Brooklyn, New York. I've forgotten the name of the place, Broadway place. So it was a dramatized version, international cast. And this is a quote from Mahabharata itself. Veda Vyas said this, which means that every aspect of human life, every conflict that people may face, or every vice that humans can commit, are discussed in the epic story. It is that important. Why? Because we learn from the mistakes of others. What was the main purpose of such a huge kind of war, which covered the entire geography of the country? I mean, every kingdom, every Janapada, every tribal head, all of them were in this or that alliance. So I'll show the map. And the vices, that is very important. That those are the things which are lessons from history that we should not go to that left. Okay. So where is Hastinapur? And that is where, people say it is mythology. Hastinapur is a real place located on Ganges, and it is the modern city of Meerut. And the name at this time, is Hatiwar. It's the same place, and the dilapidated ruins are a little far away, but it is still there. Long before Shantanu, King Bharat ruled the kingdom, and this is the story from where we start the Mahabharata. Actually, it can start from Puruvas, and long before that, the genealogy of the Puruvas. But we start from a benchmark. King Bharat was son of Dushyant and Shakuntala. His sons were incompetent, 8 of them, and instead of them, he chose a sage to inherit the throne. Now, why this information is important? It means that kingship was not hereditary. This is the importance of this decision. And that is the reason sometimes when we are picking up those pointers from the narrative, which tell us something very important, that even at that time, the question of dynastic inherited kingdoms was not always adhered to. In other words, it could be bypassed. And so this is an important decision. So instead of any of those incompetent people, he gave it to a sage. So Shantanu. So down the line came Shantanu, the king. He ruled Hastinapur, and Devavrat. So that is the story. If you all have seen Mahabharata, it says that Shantanu was near the Ganges River, and he saw Ganga, and he married her. She had a condition that whatever I do uh, from now onwards, you will vow that you will not be interfering with me. He agreed. You see, he agreed. Now, this is where, again, one thing comes up which went wrong. You should never agree to something as a king without knowing what he's agreeing to. You see? So this is because I was talking about wrong decisions, unethical decisions. And this was not a good decision. You should ask first. But he was so mesmerized by her that he agreed. So one by one, she uh, put the newborn children in the in the Ganges. The eighth one was Devavrat, and as she was going to put him in the Ganges, uh, Shantanu came running and he says, "Enough! You have already killed 7 children. The eighth one is not going to be." And she said that now that you have questioned me, you broke your vow, I have to leave. I will take my child with me for 16 years, and then when I come again, he'll be there as a prince. But he needs to be raised properly, and I cannot live with you anymore. So she left. So the king was without any heir, and he was also without a wife. So now Devavrat, he grew up in Devalok. I mean, this part is among the learned people, Brihaspati, and they were there at that time. They were the rishis. So when people say that he was raised in the Indralok or Swarag, that doesn't mean that. It means the learned people in every field. So then Devavrat was only 16, 17 years old when Shantanu went to Yamuna, river Yamuna, just going around. And he saw Satyavati near the Yamuna river. He wanted to marry her. But her father had a condition that my children will rule the kingdom, my grandsons. And if you don't agree to this, then Satyavati will not marry you. This is her father saying. This again is another wrong thing done. Without, how can you predict that Shantanu will have sons? And how can you predict that all the children will survive? You see, when you are making a vow for the future, you should know one thing that a million things can go wrong. Even if you have the best of the interpretation of your own sky chart, you can never predict what will happen. And Shantanu agreed. You see, this is another. Shantanu, first of all, did not want to make that condition. It would be injustice to Devavrat. But then Devavrat himself made a vow that he will not get married and I will adhere to your wishes. So, and then he said, I am going to be, and Satyavati's father was doubtful. He said that your children can claim the kingdom. He says, I will not get married, I will not have children. I'll remain austere and celibate. So, and that is called Bhisham Pratigya. Very complex and very difficult. But, and from that time onwards, his name became. Now, this again is a wrong thing to say. For the sake of a marriage, you are taking such a bold move that in future your grandchildren, how do you know you will have grandchildren? You see, I'm pointing out the mistakes that never get a leap in the future where the future is unknown. You can have ambitions, given these circumstances, I'll achieve this, that, that. You cannot change the destiny uh, of anybody, let alone a kingdom. So, anyway, Devavrat took this vow, and Shantanu. I mean, all of them were, I think, fools. They didn't know what vows they are taking and how those vows can be a curse or prove to be curse. So Shantanu gave the boon to Devavrat that you will never die unless you wish to die. No one can kill you. This is not a boon. This is not a blessing to be living forever. Seeing everybody's misery and being in the middle of all that, how does it become a blessing? It was a curse. And later history proves that. I'm pointing out all the unethical and useless vows they took, which led to the Mahabharata. So after this, Shantanu had two sons, and they were married to Kashi's princesses, but both of them died early. And then no sons are left, and no grandsons are left. So as far as we know, Kuru dynasty finishes now after Devrat, because Shantanu, Kuru king, had no children. Now, three sons of Ved Vyasa. So Satyavati asked Veda Vyasa to use Niyog, which I explained last time. And Veda Vyasa had three sons, one with the Ambalika, one with the Ambika, and the third one with the maid. And the first son was born blind, the second was sickly, and the third was widowed, but he was the son of a maid. So Mahabharata becomes a story of conflicts and triumphs. You see, where you succumb because of your vows, and you consider that your um, your barrier that you cannot cross. So that is, you inflict limitations on your own self. This is one of the morals of Mahabharata. Besides it being a history, it also has certain kind of morals. So it also shows now the conflict between integrity and influence. Integrity is that he should have stopped, and David should have been allowed by somebody to break his vow. case closed. But no. So Satyavati exerted the influence and made all those decisions. In fact, I was telling this story in a very simple way to my grandchildren, and one of them said, "What is wrong with this king? He goes to Ganga and falls in love with a girl. He goes to Yamuna and falls in love with that girl. So what's wrong with him and what's wrong with the rivers?" So it was a very innocent type of question, very difficult to answer. So events leading to the Mahabharata war now. The early childhood, Pandu's son, 5 sons, they were raised in the forest. When Yudhishthira was 16 years old, and they came to Hastinapur, Dhritarashtra was the king in absence of the blind king, married to Gandhar's princess, and she also put blinders on her. This is another thing. The king is blind, his wife put the blinders. Who is going to see what's going on in the kingdom? You cannot have a blind king. Mahatma Gandhi said, that see no evil, do no evil, hear no evil, say no evil, that kind of nonsense. If you don't see evil, how do you fight it? How do you think you can get out of it? And we know now from experience that those kind of stupidities landed us in such mess that it can never be now, for centuries to come, be rectified. And the same thing happened here. So there were unethical decisions and vows and boons and curses. So what is the role of Sri Krishna? That is important. Why? In the entire story, the only person who was the role model, or who always was wise enough to give advice and try to do course correction, he was Shri Krishna. All others violated every type of rule, every type of Rajya Dharma, tenet of Rajya Dharma. So then the events of 18 days of war and the aftermath. So the rivalry started early because Duryodhan claimed that I am the son of the king and I am going to be the crown prince. Yudhishthir was a little older than Duryodhan, and he claimed that he is the son of, he is the crown prince. He should be the crown prince. Now, let us go over this. In these circumstances, who should be the crown prince? You see, the moral of the story is that the rivalry was there, ignited by and encouraged by Shakuni, who was king of Gandhar, but he lived with his sister. This again is a wrong thing. A person who belongs to another kingdom far, far away, what business he has to come and live with his sister and do all those pranks and fill the heads of his nephews with all that kind of hatred and intrigue and plots and plans. So, and that is the name, Shakuni. Shakuni was Gandhari's brother. So he lived there. So rivalry between princes, they tried everything to kill those princes. They made a house of wax actually shellac. And they set it on fire, but somehow the princes were aware of it, and then they escaped their story. And then Shakuni, when they came back, they reappeared after marrying. During that time, when they went incognito to avoid all these plots, and they refused to go to Hastinapur. Instead, they remained here and there, moving around. In that process, there was Panchal kingdom right next to below Hastinapur. And Arjun married. Arjun won the contest, and Draupadi agreed to marry him and put the garland around him. Now, when the princes come back to their hut, and they said, look, what we brought. What we brought, or whom we brought, who we brought, is not the point. Something is being introduced in your heart. And without looking, she says, divide it among yourself. Now, this is another very unethical and wrong thing to do. Without seeing you are making, a decision, divide it between yourself. And those were the princes were also foolish. Instead of saying that cannot happen, you have to think. It's not that once the mouth opens and whatever comes, that becomes the law of future or decide the course of the future. They started figuring out, is there any kind of precedence where a king was married, 5 people were married to the princess? What the hoax? The point is that she made a mistake. Let us correct the mistake. Instead of justifying that now the mother has said this, we have to obey the mother. So these, I examined everything. Everything that one should not do in life was done. And the only person did not do any wrong, made no wrong decision, that was Sri Krishna. So according to me, he is the Mahanayak, the hero of the entire Mahabharata. So now the story goes on. I'm pointing out all these nonsensical, unethical decisions. And so I can't even imagine how Draupadi lived with 5 princes. So they came back. Now everybody knows that they were not dead, they are alive. Again, the tussle starts. Who should be the king or crown prince? And back and forth, back and forth. The king decided to divide the kingdom. The southern part, which is now Rajasthan, and region of Yamuna Valley, that should be going to Yudhishthira. This is another wrong decision. Partitioning your kingdom is a wrong thing. You see, make a decision. A, you go by who is the eldest son of the eldest king. That is the law of primogeniture, the eldest son. And the second is, who is the most competent, like Bharat decided. To me, Duryodhan should have been the king. His father was blind, that doesn't mean he is blind. He should have been raised properly without blinders on his mother's eyes, and probably he would have made a good king. But no. So they instead divided. And when they saw that the Pandav kingdom has become such a beautiful, uh, like out of this world kingdom, they again became very jealous. And then they had this uh, yajna of declaring Yudhishthir as the emperor of the entire, all the kingdoms. So far so good. Many people agreed, and that's it. But now comes Shakuni invited them for a game of dice. Okay. And just before that, Shri Krishna appears to Yudhishthir and said to everybody, in the presence of everybody, he said, he cautioned that kingdoms can be won and lost in a war. They cannot be placed on a stake or in a game. You see, you cannot do gambling and make a kingdom or anybody at the stake. As a king, you shouldn't do gambling. But again, he restricted. And he was such an addict at that point, obsessed to win. He continued the game. He lost his treasury, he lost his kingdom, he lost his freedom of his brothers. How can you lose the freedom of the freedom of the brothers, human beings, on the stake without their permission? They are not your property, nor was Draupadi. So these all foolish actions violated the social norms which Ramayana had established, individual behavior, parameters of that, and also Rajadhara. So by this time, everyone is wrong in every way. So they lost, and the condition was they can get it back, their own kingdom, if they go for 12 years of forest living, forest dwelling, and then 13th year, you remain incognito. If we find it and where you are, then you will repeat those 13 years again. What kind of decision was that? And they were made. So after that, again the same tussle came back to haunt. They wanted their kingdom back. And Duryodhana said that no. And Vidu said uh, that you should agree to that. Because after all, they have fulfilled their promise. And now you do your part. And he says no. And Vidu said to Dhritarashtra that force him to do it. He says, what can I do? I am not able to change the mind of my son. What an excuse. Your son is not the controller of the kingdom, nor does he rule the subjects. Who is the king? Whose responsibility is that? In any case, that was a wrong answer at the wrong time. So, the next 18 days of war and the aftermath. So, you can, to refresh your memory, which I went through, you can see in the Mahabharata serial. It's a fascinating kind of narrative done by Chopra, B.S. Chopra. So in the next slide, I show the kingdoms. Also, the excavated site in Sindhu Saraswati valleys and Ganga Yamuna Valley. That was the arena of northern India up to Vindhyachal mountain. So even below that up to Gujarat. So we'll show that not only those kingdoms were there, not only did they make the alliances, but they are archaeologically pan out, corroborated by those excavated sites. So the alliances on the Kuru side, you can see when the map comes, Shalya, Madras, Ind, Anga. I just wrote the kingdoms, a few of the kingdoms. And probably there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 22. But there were many more. Alliances, Pandu side, again, these are a few I mentioned, Kashi, Panchal, Matsya Bhagat, and others. Now let's see the map. This is the map which is the most important part of this session because it proves that this Indus Valley was not an isolated civilization. Harappa civilization, the Cambridge history, Oxford history, American historians, whatever, everybody says Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. We excavated signs of advanced civilization, whereas the rest of the country was primitive, barbaric. You can use any adjective. And then they said that they have a script, which is Indus script, which is cuneiform and some language word letters. And they said, how can there be a script and no literature? And then they said, how can these people in the rest of India had a language and some literature, but no script, Indus script? So all kind of questions are raised just to prove the point that Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were an isolated case and there was no other town like that, and the rest of the country was like tribes, nomads, and just came from some mountain or Arabian deserts or anywhere. Okay. Now we see these red marks. They are the Ankuru site. And the blue ones, Chedi Desh and Vatsadesh, Kashi, they were on Pandu's site. And then there are some here. I don't know if I can go a little down. Anyway, so below the Vindhya Parvat, there are Andhras. Andhra is still there. And then there is below that, the tip is Pandya. That is still there later on in the Tamil literature. And then there is Sri Lanka, that was there. And like this, Cholas were there. So everybody participated, right from south up to the north. Everybody participated on one or other side. So this map shows that within these kingdoms, these excavations, if we do, and we have done, they show the urban kind of buildings with the sewer system, clean water lines, pipelines, and like that. Now, the British left it at that. They thought we might find something else to contradict our narrative. Therefore, stop it. And after that, the new incompetent leader, Nehru, did not pay much attention. So he did not take interest in that. But Archaeological Society of India did try some excavations here and there. Most of them came later on when two persons, they went from here all the way and found the sub-channels of Saraswati River. Once they did that, then they try to find underneath excavation. And all these cities like Lothal, Dholavir, this Kochi, Mehergarh, Mashera, Banavali, Deriwala, all of these places were found. Literally 2000. And they were in Rajasthan, Haryana, and in the around the Saraswati area. So, what does that mean? That means that Indus Valley was no different. These were some cities, just like we have metropolitan cities in India today, and then there are mostly rural places. So, what exactly is the problem here to accept? That there were advanced civilizations, and there were cities, and there were gaon and the grams, and we have panchayats. If we accept that, then there is no issue. Then we have it resolves all kind of, conflicting accounts. And say that Harappan civilization was the same as the kingdoms of Mahabharata. So there were monarchs and Janpad and Adivasi, all of them lived in these kingdoms. Some were on the fought on side of Kuru, some Pandus. So Sapta Sindhu excavated sites were not just Vedic sites. These places are still existing and existed in Mahabharata era. Many of these kingdoms existed around the time of Alexander's invasion. Gandhar was there, and Kakaiya was there. Porus was the king of Kakaiya area. So even at that time, these were there, and they are there today also. So thus, Harappan sites were Mahabharata sites. And that should strengthen the foundation of Indian democracy and Indian nationhood. Because the entire country was united in one under the core culture. There is a cultural unity, even if there is no political unity. But political contiguity and antiguity is there. So it strengthens our claim that India was, by and large, a democracy and a nation, democratic nation. So we have geographical evidence, maps of the kingdom. So we prove Mahabharata happened. Archaeological evidence I showed, the excavated sites, pottery, agricultural produce, weapons, jewelry. I didn't put all I'm not writing a book. It's just a lesson. So found to be actually located within these territories. So now we have astronomical evidence, and we have geological evidence, we have archaeological evidence, we have the river system, evidence from that, and we have marine archaeology. So Dwarka submerged. Okay. So let's see some of the things mentioned. Astronomical evidence. Using planetarium software, exact dates of important events are determined, and sequential sky views of astronomical positions recorded in Maha. So in Savapar, it says there was a solar eclipse on the when the Pandus went for 13 years of Vanavas. And then this way, in Van Parav, it gives same astronomical positions. Then in Bhisham Parav and in the entire Udyog Parav, in different chapters, sky positions are mentioned. So based on examining those, the evidence from various disciplines, Mahabharata took place in 3139 BC. I put a yellow line here. I mean, I highlighted it because not everybody agrees. And there's a reason for disagreement. Major disagreement is around the start of Kali Yuga. So it is epochal period of ancient history of India, this war. And Vyas describes how the sky looked when Sri Krishna was preaching the philosophy of Gita to Arjuna. When Bhisham departed from the world at the beginning of Uttarayan, and when Kali Yuga started after 37 years of war. Now this is important. Did Kali Yuga start 37 years after the war, or was it there already? That part is interesting. And that is where the divergence comes. Narhar these days came little later. He said the war happened in 3067. And Kali Yuga was already there, 3102, it started, which means there was an overlap between Dwarka and Kali Yuga. And that makes sense because everything that happened during those 60 years previous to the war and afterwards, the 30 years previous to the war, everybody was violating the Dharma Yuddha. You see, hitting below the navel button and killing an unarmed person and killing a person who is not prepared for fighting and killing a person who is a minor. All of those rules were violated, which means that Kali Yuga already had started. And 3067 was the date of the Mahabharata. Okay. Then comes the other theory that Kali Yuga came when Dwarka was submerged. When the Yadus started fighting, that is when Kali Yuga started. Now, if you go back 37 years, so 3102, you add 37, it comes to this. So the whole issue is, did Kali Yuga start, 3102, start at the deluge time or at the, it was there while Dwapar was still going on. So my own take is to leave it at that. The main important thing is that whatever Vyasa showed on the sky is there. The chart pans out. You give a calendrical date according to Gregorian calendar is a matter of coincided the lunar and solar reckoning of time. So, as far as the sky graphs are concerned, they are correct. Vyas said there will be three eclipses within a month. And in the month of Kartik, there was a lunar eclipse on 31st August. I think, yeah, I mentioned it here. Lunar eclipse. This is the chart of lunar eclipse, where Sun is in Libra, Venus is in Virgo, and Saturn. This is exactly explained in the Mahabharata. So, and it pans out. Then there is a solar eclipse on the 14th September, which means within the next 13 days. Normally, each phase is 14 days plus, actually 15, 60. But 14 or 30 is near impossible, but it happened. Then another lunar eclipse in the same month. And then 12 days later, 11 days later, the Mahabharata war started. So these eclipses pan out that they were there. Whether we give it this date or that, but again, this date is given considering that Kali Yuga started after Shri Krishna left the world. Now the next one is position of planets on 14th September. This is the solar eclipse. See this whole thing. By the way, I borrowed it from Dr. Survipala. She was the director of Institute of Scientific Research in the Vedic era. I mentioned last time. All these are her creation. And even in my next 10 births, I will not be able to create this. It is so highly technical and mathematical. So Mars is in Aries. This is Aries and going towards Taurus. So this is a solar, lunar zodiac, which we call Rashi. So this is Mars. And then Venus is in Virgo, right here is Virgo. Then Sun, Moon, and Saturn are in Scorpio, and Jupiter is in Capricorn. So war started in the next month. These charts are from Kartik month, and the next one is Margshish month. So before December, on Shukal Paksh Ekadashi. Again, Shukal Paksh is debatable because after the lunar eclipse, it is the dark side of the, we are going towards new moon, so it should be Krishna Paksh. So this part I somehow feel uncomfortable with. That morning, Shri Krishna gave the sermon to Arjuna. Okay. As Bhagavad Gita, the eternal philosophy, this was 13th of October morning. Again, this is transferring this chart to the Gregorian calendar and trying to match it. Now, this is the solar eclipse, 14th September, Kartika Amavasya. So, and these things Vedavyas mentioned specifically because he said when these kind of unusual things happen, something disastrous happens also. This is not a good thing. All these planets and they are in this position and eclipses, people get mentally, deranged during the eclipses. So, sky view of 19th December 31st, depicting Mar Shukla, a day before Bhishma's demise. Now, all these references I did not verify all of them, but in Mahabharata, they are mentioned. So, tentative dates of the Mahabharata, I'll go by 31, 39, but I can also go with 3067 because I'm not quite sure that 3102, the beginning of Kali Yuga, when that, what event was linked with that. So Kali Yuga sky view, it shows 5 planets, sun and the moon between Aries and Pisces, all of them in line. Even today, when they do these kind of astronomical predictions, they mention that today, this on such and such day, all the 3 or 4 planets will be visible in a line, that kind of thing. So, what was called the cause of deluge? The previous theory was that the climate was getting warmer, and eventually, it submerged Dwarka. That is now found not true. Why? Because the climate changes very slowly. It's not that in 7 days the water level rises quite a few, meters up, and the whole thing is submerged. No. So now many astrophysicists say that parts of an asteroid, about 1 kilometer the size, fell near Madagascar. Madagascar is an island next to East Africa, tip of East Africa. So if that is where the asteroid fell, Dwarka is right here. This is Madagascar, Dwarka is right there, Ranakwach. You see, it's in the Indian Ocean. And some parts also fell, western and central parts of Pacific Ocean. And that brought up some volcanic activity at that time. So these are natural events nobody could control. Now this is the sky chart of when Kali Yuga came. So we see Saturn, Mercury, Mars, Sun, Jupiter, Moon, all of them in a line. And they say this is the 12th of January, somewhere. In the next 2 months, when they had another map, some of these planets had moved away. So they are showing some story which proves one thing, that is the historicity of Mahabharata. So story of Sri Krishna and Radha, this is something I really wanted to show because a lot of nonsense is passed to us and in the temples also. That Sri Krishna and Radha story. Sri Krishna is the Mahanayaka of the epic. He is the hero of the epic. His childhood, his education, and his move to Dwarka, all of these things happened. They are mentioned in Puranas that as a child he was raised in Gokul, they moved to Vrindavan. Then at the age of 11, he came back to Mathura, rescued his parents, went for education. Then from there, when he came back, the kingdom moved from Mathura to Dwarka. Now, where is Radha in his life? No mention of Radha in Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Purana. Later stories of Sri Krishna's childhood mentioned as 2 young kids, among many young kids, who would play pranks and play holy or, kids play. And this is a village where cattle is the main source of their raising cattle and selling milk. was the main source of their living. After killing Kans, he went for studies in Sandipani ashram, and he never went back to Vrindavan or Goa. Now, age 11, and no mention of Radha. Okay. And then he went away and went further away, never came back. So, where is the romance between Radha and Krishna? And how can 11-year-old child and Radha, if he is 10, at that time puberty was much later than it is today because of pattern of food that we eat for the last 2 centuries. So Shri Krishna at 11 and Radha at 11 or 9 or 10. And we are showing them as young adults in the temple murtis, Pratima. And then we are connecting all kind of stories, love on Radha and this and that. This makes no sense. So I would rather, if you want to show Shri Krishna as a child, yes, you show him as a child. And if you show Radha as a symbol of devotion, you can show her as a child too. But you cannot show them as adult, 19, 20 years old. It does not pan out. So, but if I tell any temple chaudhary that please change this pratima, I think I'll be considered, I'm already considered a fanatic of some sort. Something worse, I'll be considered. Now, legacy of Mahabharata. We study it. By the way, there was a taboo. People did not approve that Mahabharata should be kept in the house. Why? Because it teaches rivalry between cousins and induces wars between family. Even though wars happen all the time, and they happen between the cousins also, like the First World War, who were fighting? The king of Germany was the grandson of Victoria. The Tsar of Russia was the grandson of Victoria. And the king of England was son of Victoria. So Tsar, the Kaiser, and um, George V, they were all cousins. It was a cousins' war. All others were just tail hanging, doing tail hanging, like in Mahabharata. So it was a war between cousins. So what? It happens. The 18 days that shattered ancient India and wiped out 2 generations of people all over the subcontinent. Philosophic importance is the Bhagavad Gita. And after reading it, I'm reading it for the past 40 years now, continuously. And I still find a new meaning in that. It is so dense and deep. And then there is dharmic value. What is dharma? Not just dharma as in bhakti, devotion, dharma as applied to polity and formation of niti, dharma in that sense also, rajya dharma. And then dharma of war, yuddha dharma, soldier dharma. You see, now Arjun's dilemma, what was that? That you are trained to be a soldier and you are standing in the middle of the two groups warring. And suddenly you say, oh, I cannot fight. In modern terms, in every time, when you kind of desert your duty as a soldier, you are court-martialed. It is that serious. And especially Arjun saying that because everything depended on his. He was the only one who could defeat Dronacharya and Karan. So, it is soldier dharma is to fight. He is trained to fight. He has taken oath to fight, and he is not to question. Right in the middle of the war, I'm not going to do it. So that is a lesson that once you commit to something, and as a dharma, and accept it, and accept the consequences also, there will be bloodshed. See, they are not playing cricket; they are fighting with the lethal weapons and missiles also. So metaphysical, physical nature of the world and how it is related to the cosmic reality. All of this is in Bhagavad Gita, different chapters. Psychological handling of grief, that is Sankhya, and second chapter. So application dharma in all aspects of life, polity, niti, vidur. And vidur niti is very important. I read it on as a PDF document. And Bhisham niti also. These are available on PDF. It makes a fascinating reading in order to question the political uh, modern political kingdoms or nations, whatever you may call it. So the map given in the slide certified that Bharatvarsh was a nation with defined boundaries for more than 5,000 years. So that map did show that. And the subsequent events did show that. So a foolish person like Rahul Gandhi goes abroad and says that India was never a nation. It was tribes and small kingdoms. Such clueless, useless, incompetent people are given the uh, microphone to say whatever nonsense comes in their hand. What are the reasons these lessons have to be promoted? To shut the mouth of India's opponents who happen to be living in India and, of course, abroad. See, every other academic person raises questions and writes some kind of. There is a professor, was a professor, right? She might be still there. Wendy Doniger. She wrote Alternative History of India. When we have real history of India from every other source matching, why alternative history of India? Why alternative? What would that be? And it is all garbage. The title page is showing Krishna with all the clothes of the gopis on a tree, and they are naked in the water. Gross. Things that never happened, have no value. And she called it history. So I guess that's it. That's it. These are the legacy of Mahabharata. And why we are doing it, I explain. To prove the antecedents of India as a nation, Bharat as a nation. And as far as we go, 5,000 years, or even earlier than that, things don't change. Because whatever the sky charts, 142 references are there of the sky charts. I just took 3 or 4. But out of that, 56 have checked out. And the task is going on even now to tally the rest of them. So having said that, I think if you have any question, I had a lot of questions even while developing these slides. So I think, as far as I am concerned, it's done. So,
Hi.
hi.
Hi, Sister Gal. Namaste, TG. This is a very packed, dense session. I really enjoyed it. I don't have any immediate questions, but I just wanted to say this was very well put together. And I'd love if in the syllabus you have time to maybe go deeper into like the things of like how lunar eclipses affect people. You said it's heavy around that time of the year. You went a little into that, but I think that was very interesting. But also, yeah, maybe like at the end of this series, like your favorite parts of the Gita, which have probably changed over the many years you've been reading it, but then just for us to follow. Yeah, just wanted to say that this is wonderful. Want to learn more.
Mhm. Thank you. Actually, lunar eclipses, let us see it even today. On a lunar, ordinary full moon, the water rises up and down, there are tides. So water is affected. So water in the human body is also affected by moon. And obviously, if there is an eclipse, that flow of water is obstructed. The energy of the sun or the moon during the eclipse is partially gone. So if that is gone, the obvious result is it has effect on the living species. Even though it does not affect the entire universe, but it affects our own life on Earth, how small it is. In fact, like 3, 4 days back, there was a very cute quotation from Stephen Hawkins. He was a physicist, mathematician in England, who became handicapped, but he lived up to 76 years. And his quotes are very interesting. He said that he also proved at the end of his, toward the end of his life, how to really measure and prove that there are billions and billions of galaxies. And that was very fascinating kind of what he explained. But the one quote that he said was that we are evolved species of monkeys. We are evolved species of monkeys living in an insignificant star on a very average size planet. So he said, and yet he said, we are so unique, in spite of all these insignificant everything, we are still so unique because we are the only one who can decipher or try to decipher the universe. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, this is not the exact quote. This is how I remember the main part. So,
That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. On that and related to the Mahabharata, wasn't there a section where I think Krishna expanded his body to
yeah,
what
yeah,
was
that is part of Bhagavad Gita. You see,
what
yeah,
was the lesson there that he was trying to convey?
uh, you see, when a person is born to die,
Mm,
he is a human being, he's mortal. But showing those kind of um, uh, universal kind of aspects, I don't doubt it that he was more than a human being.
mm,
Extraordinary kind of, it is called the Divya Drishti, that you can see the divinity,
mm.
like Sanjay saw the whole war sitting in Hastinapur. He had divine vision. So if a person had that kind of divine vision and that evolved, he can show the divinity, total divinity. You see, I personally don't want to doubt it because it is one of the basic pillars of our faith, our astha. And the way it shows, it is endless. And universe is endless. The way we see in the form of a rainbow, that is exactly how the Brahma Roop comes up. So whether he did it, I did not mention. Because some of these things are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, many of them are given in Bhagavad Puran. And
Uh,
there are several volumes, and I read just a few here and there.
last question from my side. Do you know if Krishna was really blue?
Krishna is a Guru?
Blue. Yeah, like blue skin.
Oh, no, he was dark complexion.
Okay.
Yeah, the blue color is given, depiction is artistic, symbolism. Blue is for infinity.
Okay. Oh, okay. Good to know. Yes.
Yeah, blue is for infinity, white is for austerity,
Hmm.
and yellow is for prosperity,
Okay.
growth.
Thank you.
So infinity and dark blue, Shri Krishna dark blue. I mean, it is artist's imagination. Yeah.
Rohit.
Okay. Rohit,
Yeah. I have a question which is kind of related to just one of the comments you just made about Lord Krishna, that he was more than a human being. So it's related, but it's slightly bigger in scope. So what I would like to understand, which has been this question has been on my mind for quite some time now, what is the difference between Bhagwan, or how do you define Bhagwan, first of all? And second thing is there a difference between Bhagwan, Ishwar, and Parmeshwar? Because we seem to in present day Hindus seem to use these words interchangeably. But in my mind, there is a difference.
there is a
But I
difference.
would like to know your thoughts.
Yeah, there is a difference. Ish is the word for what commonly we call now in Vedanta as Brahma, right? The
Mhm.
divine entity, which is energy, consciousness, and vibration, interaction between the two. So that is Brahman and Ish, right? Now, a person who is born to die has human limitations. If he did not have human limitations, wouldn't he have rescued his parents the very day he was born? And he himself says, when Bhisham says to Arjun, to Sri Krishna, that if you know the result of the Mahabharat war, you, Sri Krishna, shouldn't you avoid it and stop it? And he says, in the cosmic operation of the cosmic law, I cannot interfere. In other words, whatever the karmas of the human beings are, they have to follow into a chain reaction, action, reaction, synthesis, and new spiral kind of interactions. Now, that answers one question, that we cannot use these terms alternately. Okay. Bhagwan is, everybody is a Bhagwan. Bhagwan means five things. We are made of five tattvas. What are those five tattvas? Bhumi, Bhagwan. Gagan, the consciousness part. Bhumi is Prithvi, from which gross body. That is Bhumi. Gagan, consciousness. and what is the name? Vayu, Bhuva, Agni, and last one is water.
And I'm sorry?
Water, Neer.
Water. Neer. Okay.
Neer.
Okay.
So, Bhumi, Gagan, Vayu, Agni, and Neer. That is Bhagavan. We are all made of 5 tattvas. Now, the 3 tattvas of material human being, other energies are Atma, Ahankar, and there is mind. You see, Bhagavan is all those 5 tattvas, but human beings have 3 more. And Shri Krishna says there are 8 material energies to my nature, yani nature of humans. So that is Ahankar and Buddhi and mind. Yes, these are the 3. That makes a difference. Now, if the Buddhi of Shri Krishna or consciousness of Shri Krishna was so evolved that he could see the divinity or show the divinity in a certain way, I will say he was, even as a mortal, he was very evolved consciously. What makes the difference between you and me or anybody is the level of evolution of consciousness. And what is the purpose of transmigration? You go, as Guru Nanak Dev said, Sahastra Yudu, Firat, कई योनियां निकल गई फिरते फिरते मानस देह लगी. So after such a long journey to different species, and you finally get to a human being. And among human beings, some are evolved, and yet their buddhi is giving them nonsensical, where ahankar comes. So these are interactions that within the human being, mind, buddhi, ahankar. And if you transcend these 3, you are very close to divinity, high level of consciousness. So Parameshwar is again among all the devatas, there is the divine. Devatas are limited, and Parameshwar is the ultimate divine. It can be alternately used for Brahma, but it is a Hindi word, and you see the vocabulary changes also over time. So Bhagavan is not as Brahma. Brahma is divine. Everybody is Bhagavan. 3 other elements, material energies of the divine, they differentiate the level of consciousness.
So Ishwar and Parmeshwar are the same?
Ishwar and Parameshwara are the same. Parameshwara, because this word is, connotation is wrong, because Ishwar is considered as Deva. So,
Right.
and that is why this whole issue comes. I don't use the word Parameshwara.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter what word to use. Words are words. Vocabulary
So,
changes.
so one last question. I
Yeah.
don't want to monopolize
No,
everybody's
no,
time.
no, no. Go ahead.
So can one becomes can Bhagwan become Ishwar or Parmeshwar or merge? I mean,
Yeah. Bhagwan, all of us, according to our good karma, we go to the merge into the collective consciousness, surrendering all the 5 elements. You see, prana leaves, consciousness leaves, and this water goes away, the body shrivels, Agni goes, it becomes cold. All the 5 elements disintegrate here, and then the Atma goes, and depending on the karma, it merges in the collective consciousness. And once they have exhausted those good karma, they are reborn. That is why we have what we call the grieving period is over after the 11 months after a person dies. We call it Varina, Barsi.
Okay.
Why 11 months? Because for first 3 days, the body is around, the asthis, the ashes. And then it is submerged and it is still there in the Earth's atmosphere. If it is in the Uttarayan, where the sun is, Earth is tilting towards the sun, the magnetic field of the North Pole is very strong because the Earth is facing that. So it quickens the exit of the Atma to the space, collective consciousness. And then after staying there for some time, it is reborn. And that takes 9 months. So 9 plus 2 months here and there, adding the day the body lives. After 11 months, if the child is born, that person takes another form, then there is no need to grieve. Grieving is over because otherwise, for the first 2 years of a child's life, he or she remembers the past life. Once you get the speech and vocabulary and interact with the world, that memory is gone.
So maybe that's why Bhishma Pitama waited to leave the
Yes,
body until Uttarayan?
exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Everybody wants that once the winter solstice is over, if I have to leave, this is the auspicious time.
Okay.
So, because of the journey of the Atma, it's quickened, doesn't look back too much, and
Right.
goes straight, fast.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
These questions are not directly related, but since you raised the question of Virat Roop, it makes sense to tie up.
Right.
Naresh?
Anji, Auntie, namaste again. So I have a question. You made a statement during your talk that if Yudhishthir should have been chosen because he was a son of the older brother, even though brother was blind, but Yudhishthir was not. So if they would have followed that rule of law, I guess then probably Mahabharata wouldn't have even happened, right? And that would have totally changed the course of things. So do you agree with that? And then why that action was not taken? Because this was destined to happen, and sometime, do people have free will? So I just want your thought on that.
Yeah, very simple. Dhritarashtra was not chosen the king. He was Pandu was the king. After his and many years he was the king. When he went to fight with Madara and married the daughter of after divorcing, he married Madri. After that, he came back and his health was bad. So he was advised by Bishop Pitama that you be a recluse and get better. And on your behalf, Dhritarashtra will. So this is what hurt him so much. This was the thorn that was pricking him that I am not the king in my own right, being the eldest. I am chosen to rule on behalf of Pandu. This was, you see, everybody has grudges. It is the story of grudges. You see, Amba was in love with the Shalya prince, but she was Kashi's princess. But Bhisham kidnapped her. Amba said that she went when Bhisham learned that Amba is in love with somebody else. He sent her back to Shalya. Shalya said, "Now I don't accept her." So Shalya had the grievance that against Bhisham, he kidnapped. Therefore, he was on Kuru's side. You see, and this Ganga, Amba, had the grievance that Bhisham ruined my life. And if I have to be born again and again and again, I am going to kill him. So he came in new life. Committed suicide, came new life, Shikhandi, and killed. It's a story of Shakuni had the grievance that all of these people, Kurus, have to be killed, and Bhisham especially, because they forced my sister to marry a blind guy. He had a grudge. So it's ahankar, aham, and grudge married to each other and interacting.
Auntie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Auntie. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah. Anybody else? That's it.
Yeah, hopefully last, just from my side.
Mm.
You mentioned some counter arguments to the Mahabharata, like for example, Gandhi says, "See no evil, hear no evil," etc. And also, some people maybe see the teachings as contentious amongst family and cousins. Like you said, for some reason, people choose not to do that. Can you like disambiguate or separate Mahabharata, the story, versus the Gita? Because I think I'm curious if it's like one is the direct conversation and the poetry there. I think so, but if you could maybe give a definitive differentiator, because if there's some counter arguments to the story of Mahabharata versus the purity of teachings.
No, history of Mahabharata, let's not say now story, because it is India's history. So history of Mahabharata has the episode. So that event cannot be isolated. It was much later, much later, several, I think a couple of millennia later, that Gita was separated as a different text. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he did Gita Bhashya. Shankaracharya did Gita Bhashya. Dayanand Saraswati did Gita Bhashya. So they isolated it as a book of philosophy, psychology, and physics. That is why, unless you have all these three subjects, the basics, you cannot understand Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, that's very
all three aspects.
okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, so, but
Yeah, I think we'll end the session here.
we can end the session. No more questions.
Yeah.
By the way, last time there was a feedback. Somebody said that wrote to me that Valmiki wrote, made the sky chart of Shri Ram's birth and every other important event. Why didn't he make the sky chart of Love Kush's birth? When they were, the story says that they were raised by Valmiki in his ashram. And why didn't he make? So my answer is it didn't happen. No, the story ends. Valmiki Ramayana ends there, Tulsidas Ramayana ends there, that they came back and he was coronated. That's it. Somebody later, even Mahabharata itself gives the story of Ramayana. Markandeya Rishi tells them the story. Because Yudhishthira says, because of my mistake, now there will be a war. I feel so guilty. And Markandeya says that don't worry about it. These things happen. Shri Ram Kakai made the mistake. Ravan made the mistake, and look how much bloodshed happened. So Markandeya tells the story, and it ends, they come back and coronate. So this was the question somebody raised, that why he didn't make the sky draft or Kundali of Janam Kundali. So, okay, all right. Yes.
Yeah, we'll end it here. Thank you very much.
अच्छा, no, अभी किसी की आवाज आई थी. That's it?
Yeah.
All right. In that case, namaste.
Namaste.
Next session will be on Buddha Dharma, how close it is. And
Thank you. I just don't want to miss anything.
Ji,